Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, what is up? What is up? What is up? Welcome to another edition of the Hawksbeat podcast. And on today's show, I have with me Mr. Glen Willis of ATL and 29 joining me to talk a little Atlanta Hawks, man. So, brother Glenn, welcome to the show, man.
Appreciate it. Yeah, we're in that season where we're having to almost fabricate things to talk about. No, there's summer league was interesting and the roster construction has been interesting. So plenty to talk about it, even if it's something we've talked about for a little while.
At this point, you just know who your fans are. You know who tunes into your podcast because only the sickos are deep in to these July and early August podcasts. But we make it work, man. We make it work.
Absolutely.
First things first, man. I got to say, man, I'm a big fan of what you guys got going on at ATL and 29. I think that Hawks fans are in good shape as far as like content creators, man. Like there's a number of different podcasts and we all have our different styles and I admire the way you guys can break down X's and O's and Brad has his style and you got the fan sites with their thing and so everyone's doing their own thing, man. There's money to eat for everybody, you know what I'm saying? So big fan of the ATL and 29 podcast, man. Y'all do a great job.
I appreciate that, but I mean, I think we got a nice little corner of the kind of the NBA sphere here. You got everybody from Bryce on Believe It in Hawks, David Lee does awesome stuff with Film Room, Tim and Mikey over Ethos, and I could go on and on and on and on. Right, my friends over at Hard Knocks are growing and learning all the time. That's impressive, and so it's a fun little corner we got here. And I think you're right. I think the styles are different, things like that, and. It was about a year ago that Tyler came back and rejoined ATL in 29, and that was something that I was very excited about. I used to joke with Kevin one-on-one as two middle-aged white guys. We were kind of the podcast version of a middle-aged dad garage band, and we needed some juice. We needed something to complement kind of, I'm an extrovert. When I'm talking basketball, I'll go all analytical and kind of tone my extroversion down. But Tyler brings some juice and some energy that makes us a more well-rounded product. So it's been so fun to have him back in the mix over there too now consistently. So
yeah, man. Shout out to the crew, man. So this is the doldrum time of the NBA season. I want to kind of just briefly talk a little bit about summer league. For the sickos, there was a lot of talk about Kobe Buffkin and Asa Newell. I just kind of want to get your kind of brief takeaways as far as summer league is concerned as a whole, and I guess we can kind of just start with Kobe. I feel a lot of times that Kobe is unfairly projected upon, meaning that I think that a lot of fans want to see something that he's just not. You know what I mean? I think a lot of fans want to see him. They want to see pure point guard attributes from Kobe. And like he's never really been a pure point guard. He's always kind of been like a combo guard to me. And so I'm just interested on your thoughts on, a lot of eyes were on him in Summer League, just kind of like your overall takeaway from what you saw from Kobe in Summer League.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll start with, I know people heard me say this, but I'm not worried about Kobe. I know what the Hawks think he is and believe he is, and when you hear from people around the organization, you'll hear them continuously express confidence in Kobe and what he can do. I think they built a better backcourt on this roster that they'll carry into this season. Like last year, it was when Kobe played before he got hurt. It was him and Garrison Matthews, or him and Dyson when Dyson was just acclimating to offense. But to have guys like Luke Kennard and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, veterans that Kobe will be able to play alongside of on the second unit, is a completely, significantly improved context for him, right? It's going to take a lot of pressure off of him and those things. And I think that's great. What I saw from him at Summer League, people, if they follow my Patreon, you'll have heard me say, it looked to me like watching up close in person. I had a chance to watch all those games in person. Was that they wanted him to be super aggressive, like just really, really, really aggressive, more aggressive than he's probably ever been asked to be at any point in his basketball journey so far. And there were mixed results. Like he had a couple games where he had a high turnover volume. Part of that was defenses were loading up, generating ball pressure. Some of that was new guys, he hadn't played with before and they're not always in the right place for the pass and things like that. So for me, I think, what the Hawks, when you talk to people around the team, what you hear is they love his mentality. They love that he just sticks with it, works through adversity, keeps working, stays focused on the task at hand. And he takes the assignment, he takes the challenge that they give them, and he embraces it and goes out and tries to do that. And so for me, I think the Hawks are really, from a culture standpoint, trying to build a roster of guys that will just work and work and work, put the team first, put the organization first, put their teammates first. And Kobe does that all the time. But they wanted, the other thing that I saw was they really wanted him to be more vocal and be more vocal leader. That's in his natural personality. I think that's not always the thing he's most inclined to do. But like a big difference between watching the Hawks Summer League games and some other teams is you typically, when you're there in the gym, it's constant coaching to the young guys, just non-stop verbal coaching to the young guys. But Hawks staff did not do that. They were almost non-verbal during the game, and they wanted Kobe to run things. They wanted Kobe to give direction when he needed help from Flagler because he's getting double teamed. He wants to tell you, Adam, I need you over here, or Jacob Toppin, I need you to come help me this way, or what have you. And so in each game, he did get more and more vocal. So for me, I felt like it was more of a mentality growth and leadership and vocalization that I don't think they were really worried about turnovers. I don't think they were worried about the game where he started 0 for 9 or whatever it was. It was go out and just keep working and keep being aggressive. And I thought he did what they asked him to do. So, I think they saw a lot of confidence in him. He showed a lot of good. For people who want to kind of look at the turnovers and say, that's concerning, I'm not going to get an argument with you over that, but I don't think it concerns the Hawks that was part of the experience.
Yeah, it's summer league is always fun because you have people like ready to dive off a cliff, one way or the other, and you always have to at one point I used to always try to preach perspective, but I stopped doing that because folks are so starved for basketball. Summer league comes around and it's like first 5 minutes, you're either winning the championship or it's the worst thing ever. There's no nuance, there's no anything, and it's just balls to the wall. And you're like, hey man, go at it. I don't even fight it anymore. And so I'm with you. I think Kobe's going to be fine. I think what you alluded to earlier, the structure around Kobe is better this year from a team standpoint. And so he'll be out there with better lineups. You know what I'm saying? If he's out there with Alexander Walker, I mean, that's an upgrade from what he had to deal with from last year. I think that he'll be in a better spot, as far as, what he has to deal with. So I'm fine with Kobe. I like the kid. I think he has a good head on his shoulders. And, again, it's July fodder. And, we're talking about a guy who's probably going to be maybe like the 9th or 10th guy on the rotation. But I mean, I'm team Kobe, man. Go ahead and have yourself a year. And I hope he's able to stay healthy because he's a great kid to talk to. Another one of the young guys that's got a lot of buzz is Asa Newell, the rookie from Georgia. And I will tell you this, as far as the summer league, and I'm really pretty even keel about the guys and especially in summer league, but I was pleasantly surprised from Asa Newell from what I saw from this summer. I saw a lot of verticality. I saw a lot of movement that I liked. I saw a lot of activity. And, for a rookie, I think that's a positive because if you don't know nothing, just go out there and play hard. You know what I'm saying? Play hard, play fast. The strength thing is obviously something that he'll grow into. But curiously, what you saw with the rookie and his ups and downs.
Yeah, I mean, so at his introductory introduction, he talked about needing to get bigger and stronger, and you love that he's transparent about that being something he needs to work on. And, for me, especially with guys who are their first summer league experience, and I said when I watch guys, what I'm looking for is 10% improvement game to game to game. I'm not looking for some massive step from game 1 to game 2, but he definitely exceeded my expectations. I mean, first of all, just the shot making was surprising to me. How well he shot the ball from 3, how willingly he shot it, how confidently he shot it that was interesting to me. But on defense, just the processing is already pretty high level. His timing, helping, shading help, seeing a guy who needs, a second to get reconnected to his guy and him kind of moving into that space to buy some. He's just very smart defender. And as the one area where he struggled in the game one was rebounding, and he's not the broadest guy. He doesn't have the widest body. And those things. But what I liked is that in game two, he went out and he worked for rebounds. He got called for like, I don't know, 4 fouls trying to get a rebound. And I think that was a good thing that he was in there. He's going to have to learn the nuance, the technique of how to rebound without fouling. But I'd rather him go in and just kind of start pushing people around and trying to be physical and be aggressive. And so I looked like that, he got a kind of a message around, don't worry about taking fouls. Just go, go work on the boards, and then even the ball handling, like, it's not something they're going to ask him to do a lot early in his career, but he was pretty responsible with the basketball. He didn't see like any mistakes. You could tell that he kind of knew what they wanted to do system wise. You got the ball, get to a DHO or reverse it to the weak side and move and cut, and so just the processing and the shot making is what kind of jumped out to me. I think he, it's one of those things. Brad and I recorded, kind of a post wrap there, and it's gonna be interesting to see at one point in the season does he ever get into the rotation in this coming season? Like by say February, is he competing with someone else for that backup 4 minutes? Whoever it might be, there may be still some roster work to do, but I'm excited about him. I think he's hard worker, coachable, and those are the things that the Hawks clearly are valuing in their draft picks and their acquisitions. And that's why they picked Ricochet last year, because he was team first guy. Asa clearly goes out and tries to help his teammates and all that. So for me, I think it was a great pick. Still can't believe they got an unprotected first round pick on draft night and moved back and still got their guy at 23. But he's going to be, I think he's going to be good. He's going to be good. We'll see how much, he probably plays the first third of the season, is probably College Park a good bit, and then just depends on how rapidly the development and progress comes to see if he's kind of in the mix, say, come February or so, and see if he's playing some for the big league team.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I do cover some College Parks game. I'm out there with Kevin sometimes, and that's, to me, like, that's fun. Like watching all the development games, like all the guys develop. I remember when Jalen Johnson was in College Park, and I went to a game and he had like 20 rebounds and 20 points. I was like, yo, man, this kid's got it. Like, you know what I'm saying? And so I'm excited about seeing his development in College Park. I know a lot of fans kind of want to push the timetable up. I've seen some folks already be like, yeah, he's going to be the backup 4. I'm like, oh, let's slow down just a little bit, but it is what it is. But I'm excited for his development. The first thing that I saw when he was in Summer League, he didn't look scared. Like he didn't, like you kind of alluded to it. He wasn't afraid to mess up. Like, yeah, mess up, but I'd rather you mess up being over anxious and over doing it than just sitting at the free throw line watching other guys get rebounds. And so, yeah, like I like the energy. The shooting surprised me, just like you. And I think the Hawks got a very solid pick with that draft pick with Newell.
Excited about him for sure.
Yeah. I want to transition to the roster now. They're pretty much filled up with their guys. You got 14 guys. I think they have one roster spot open. You got the 3 two-ways. Your thoughts on the 3 guys, Wallace, Toppin, and Jay. I'm pretty pleased with the 3 two-way spots. I think Keaton Wallace kind of knew he was going to be back because he was hanging around all the Hawks guys like all summer. I think
you're not getting rid of me.
I'm like, yo, man, for a guy who don't got a squad, he's sure around here a lot. Yeah, and so I'm cool with these 3 two-way guys. Like, what are your thoughts on those on our two-way guys? We'll kind of work our way up.
I mean, I think there's a lot of quality there for your two-ways, and to me, for Keaton, the thing that I love about him is just having more defensive depth in your backcourt. If you have a set schedule, we played 4 games in 7 nights or 3 and 5 or whatever it is. Somebody rolls an ankle, whatever it is. He's a guy who he's a true NBA caliber defensive guard, right? He can go out and guard anybody, right? And you love that about him. Now, offensively, his game isn't as far along as the other guys. Naturally, that's one of the reasons he's on a two-ways, because his offensive game lags a little bit, right? But he's still he runs the system. Like when on the catch, he's 0.5. It's his decision making, pass, dribble, shoot, those sorts of things. But for me, just having a guy who can go out and defend, maybe you're playing, one of the bottom teams in the league, and you want to give somebody a break, take a night off or whatever it might be. Kennard, tends to miss 10, 12, 15 games a year. And so here's a guy who you can kind of slot in there, and you go up against, say, a Charlotte or a whoever, that might not, might be an opportunity to get some guy off his feet that Keaton can go in there and defend at a completely reasonable level around that. And like I said, on offense, he doesn't do anything dumb. He knows what the system is. He knows how to kind of work within it, and all of that. For me, Toppin was the most fun player to watch at Summer League for me up close. I mean, his defense was ridiculous. I mean, he was so good defensively. And I said, like, I wonder if he's too good to be on a two-way. He's good. He's good. He's really good.
Yeah.
And to have a guy who's 6'8", who can defend 2, 3, 4, I think, not every, not the, there's probably 3 or 4 shooting guards you don't want, you don't want him on, you want Dyson on, that sort of thing. But he shot the ball well, shot the ball decisively, let it go. But I mean, he was their most consistent defender by a lot. He really impacted the game defensively when he was on the floor. So it's going to be interesting with that last roster spot. I talked to last time I recorded Kevin and Tyler. I was like, some team's probably going to try to come give him a real contract. He's that good. And so the Hawks might need to get him on a real contract to keep him going. And Kevin and Tyler were like, well, they can't just come take him. I'm like, well, a lot of teams don't stand in the way. If they have a guy in a two-way who has a chance to get a real contract on another team, they don't always stand in the way. So the Hawks might have to be a little strategic about making sure that they keep him in the fold, because one of the big issues last year with trying to win games the last 2 months, all the injuries were, once Jalen was down and once Hunter was traded, they had no size at the 4, and Toppin offers you some real size at the 3 and 4 that's something they didn't have last year. So for me, I think he has a bright future on the team, and I think he's helpful. And then Njai, you could see that, in Europe, he played on a championship caliber team, and you could, in the one game he played, you could see all the instincts, all of the processing. I mean, that game, he was kind of incredibly disruptive defensively. In that one game that he did play, was all over the place. And then you remind yourself that he played on one of the best teams in Europe last year, and actually started the last half of the season roughly, and then started in the playoffs and all that. So it's kind of funny to me. You watch him and you're like, okay, he's not going to be on a two-way for like 2 or 3 years. It's probably like 1 year in a two-way, and then he's probably a rotation player before too long too. So I love the upside of all of them. I mean, for Keaton is more of a high floor guy. I think, to me, Toppin is still developing, but Toppin gives you a lot of versatility offensively and defensively. And then Njai just brings some high level instincts and patterns that he brought over from playing on such a good team in Europe. So I thought they did great all 3 spots.
Yeah, man, I'm a big Keaton Wallace guy. I wasn't familiar with Njai, but I was very pleased once I kind of did some digging on him, saw some of his tape. Saw him in the summer league. I'm like, okay, like, I don't know where they found him, but like, yeah, come on over. And Toppin, the thing that surprised me, it looked to me like dude got better from last year to already. Like, because I remember like last year we didn't see much of him, but this year I was like, man, it looked like he's definitely been working. You know what I'm saying? So if he continues to progress, I could definitely see a team snagging him. I mean, I would love to see him in College Park as much as can, but we saw the whole Tony Bradley thing, how that worked out for Tony Bradley. But yeah, man, you definitely need those guys at the back end of your rotation. In its totality, right now, the Hawks still have one more roster spot. If I believe they have one more roster spot open. Do you feel, and I think we all can agree that this team, they've done a yeoman's job of putting these 14 guys together. Do you believe they keep that roster spot open, or do you think they kind of go into the season with the flexibility to kind of keep that optionality of just having that one roster spot open? Like, where do you kind of think they're going with that?
Yeah, so it's interesting to me. At least this year, it won't be the ghost of Mr. Zeller occupying that 50 spot that everybody was so angry about last year, right? But they could go into the season with 14. For me, because with Porzingis, probably the goal is to play him. If you can get him 60 games out of him, I think you've done really, really well.
Yeah.
But then you look at who that forces Jalen or Mo Gay, or what does it look like when Kristaps is sitting those 15 to 20 games, whatever it might be. So I think if it were up to me, they've strengthened the guard position enough with Nicole Alexander-Walker, Luke Kennard, Dyson grew offensively last year. The role they had him play in last year when Trey was off was still a lot bigger than was probably appropriate for him, but he got a ton of reps, which was helpful to him. He shot the ball a lot better the last 6-7 weeks of the season. So for me, I think they're good at the guard position overall, unless they could. I mean, if they could go get somebody that would a Monty Morris or something like that would come in and be okay not playing, I think that would be fine. But for me, like if they could go get like Thomas Bryant to come in and be your third center, the challenge you have there is that he's good enough to be someone's backup center, not a third center, right? So he's probably looking for a team that's going to give him that role. Rashawn Holmes is out there, Precious Achiuwa's out there. So to me, I'd like to see them add someone. Like the thing I like about Thomas Bryant is he's willing to be very physical, and he's willing to really mix it up and embrace physical play. So if you're going up against the Clippers and you got to do a Zubac or Denver and Jokic, or if Embiid's healthy, who knows, kind of someone can kind of go into games like that. I don't know that I want, Kristaps Porzingis to go spend 12 minutes trying to deal with Joel Embiid, in a game in that situation. So for me, I'd like to see them add another center. I think that makes sense, but I think they're going to have to wait until these guys who are still out there can figure out if they can land on a team where they might get the backup center role. And obviously the economics is what they're focusing on, because wherever they can go and play the most, that's going to build their market value the most as well. So that's where I'd like to see them add. But I think this might go all the way up to like media day before they figure out, who's still available and what might work. I want them to have a guy that can help them protect Porzingis. That's what I would prioritize.
Yeah, and my sentiments exactly, and I've said that plenty of times. I would like just kind of another big in the room. You got Jalen, you got Double O, you got Mo, Porzingis, Asa. You just kind of want a little bit. I don't know. For me, I kind of just want a little bit more insurance. A little bit more physicality. And it's going to be interesting to see how Quinn manages this roster, because yes, this is a talented roster, but there's a lot that he has to manage this year. We talk about Porzingis, we talk about Jalen's coming off of an injury. Like, we can't just pencil him in for 82 games. He's coming off of an injury. Mo has tendency to, be kind of all over the place. And so do you have to manage him? And so bigs, I tell you what, man, bigs are something that you really have to manage as an NBA coach. And so it's going to be interesting to see how he does that. And I'm with you. I would like to see another big come in here, another center. I know there's rumors about Uncle Al come on home, Uncle Al. It would be nice to see Al Horford take one last spin around the block. You know what I mean? The farewell tour. I would love to see that, but I think that they're not going to make any moves up until maybe even around closer to media day and things like that. So we're definitely in agreement with that. I like what they did with the guards and the wings. There's always been a conversation about the non-Trey minutes. They didn't necessarily go out and get a pure point guard. They do, however, have ball handlers on this squad. I was telling somebody in one of my podcasts, I was like, you know what? Like, Trey plays a lot of minutes. Trey plays a lot of minutes. He plays a lot of games. And, they still were like bleeding when he wasn't out there, but you're really only looking at like maybe if Trey's playing 36 minutes a game, you're probably looking at maybe 12 minutes of non-Trey minutes. He doesn't miss many games, so maybe 5 to 7 games a year, but you still want to shore up those non-Trey minutes. Do you think the Hawks have done, or what do you think those non-Trey minutes will look like this year with this roster at its current peak, at its current look?
Yeah, I think that's where Kennard helps the most. Kennard is such a professional guy offensively. He can play on the ball, off the ball. He can run your offense, or he can, he and Kobe can kind of load share maybe initiation and running the offense when Trey's off the floor. And even Nicole Alexander-Walker is able to do some second side stuff when the ball rotates to him. So to your point, they have a lot more ball handling this year. Like last year, if it wasn't Trey, it was Keaton's an average ball handler, does fine, he's responsible, but Garrison Matthews will find himself with the ball in his hands with 4 on the shot clock is like, oh boy, here we go,
Here we go.
Yeah, and Dyson was great. Like when there was spacing on the floor, which got harder and harder across the year when they had injuries. After you trade, certainly Niang helped in Dyson's minutes with Trey off, and Terrence Mann shot way over his normal baseline, which was helpful as well. But Dyson, like getting to his floater and getting to his spin move, that's really what he's really good at. I think that's what they need to kind of focus on with him. And so I think, last year, Dyson is such a confident and mentally strong guy that when they routed all that, basically the backup point guard minutes to him, he just leaned into it. I mean, there were times it was kind of ugly, and there were times that he did great. He'd get to the rim. And so, how do you not love, watching that guy play basketball, especially on defense? But then I really admired how much he just absorbed the responsibility of running the second unit offense, even though his skill set isn't really what you'd ideally want it to be to do that. So I think Kennard helps a ton there. And what I love about the Kennard acquisition the most, like I said a few minutes ago, is I think it's just going to take a lot of pressure off of Kobe. I think they can ease Kobe into workload and responsibility and those things. And really, what Kobe brings, probably what's the most ready part of his game is his on-ball defense. That he's really good, in that area. So for me, I love the acquisition. And it's one of those things like you hear Quinn talk all the time. Quinn's going to be like, it's not about one guy. It's about moving the ball. It's about motion. It's about creating, flow. It's split cuts, rotating the ball, all that sort of stuff. And pace. Pace is a big one as well. And they got veterans. Minnesota played pretty fast last year, not as fast as the Hawks did. But Memphis with Ja loved to play fast. And so both of those guys kind of know what it's like to hit a head pass, get into offense early in the shot clock. And those things. So for me, I'm happy with where the roster is from a guard perspective.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, again, you have a totally different roster construct, and I think that a lot of times fans will look at it from a traditional standpoint of, oh, I just need a traditional backup pure point guard, and it looks kind of like the Hawks might do kind of a committee type thing. Right. And I don't think they had the roster last year to really do the committee thing. And so we saw what it looked like with Dyson running the point. And, it's not his traditional thing, but he embraced it. Like Dyson, he showed me so much last year, and like so much that you just love. Like you just love how that guy plays basketball, And so you bring in a guy like Kennard, and then if you have a healthy Kobe, you have plenty of options. And you have better lineups, So I'm hopeful that the Trey lineup, the non-Trey lineups, are not as deficient as they were, and I don't think they will be because in the past they have been. You can't really replicate everything Trey does, like it. So you just kind of want to tread water and come up even, But yeah, I agree. I think the triage by committee, I think they'll be fine as far as that is concerned with the roster. Kind of going back to the bigs, and I've seen different conversations, and I'm not really a fan of who gets to start and everything because I kind of believe like who closes games is more important. Who gets the minutes. We saw last year with Ricochet starting, but DeAndre Hunter was getting a lion's share of the minutes. I've seen a lot of some folks talking about, maybe Porzingis starts or does a double O start. Like, in your opinion, like, what do you think about the starters? Do you go with the typical 5, or do you throw Porzingis in there at the 5 and bring Onyeka off of the bench another year?
Yeah, so I guess we won't know until we get to October and we see what they're doing. But they invested a lot last year in Onyeka. They invested a lot in growing him, and he added an above the break 3, which he never had before at any point in his career. I thought he got better defensively across the season. Started really. They started with Clint and Nance out. They did a lot more 1-3-5 switching. Red scheme. Different flavors of that. And he started attacking the basketball more, creating turnovers, creating events, and stuff like that. So for me, they seem really invested in Onyeka. And if you look at Onyeka, Porzingis, Jalen, and then a fourth guy, if that's Mo to start the season or whoever it is, it almost doesn't matter who starts. There's going to be they're probably all going to play about the same minutes. And the benefit of potentially bringing Porzingis off the bench is you can cap his minutes at say 25, whatever that number is that you feel like is going to kind of create an opportunity for him to be available across the whole season. Where Onyeka is younger, he can push his minutes a little more. And to your point earlier, though, like with I don't know that Jalen's playing 32 minutes a game right from the jump. We'll see where he is physically, but that's something where I don't think you want to kind of put him in a situation where he's back there overextending himself early in the season. So Mo might be playing 15 minutes a night, and while Jalen's kind of easing his workload back to starter's workload. But to me, I think people arguing about who's starting and who's not. I mean, I'm a little curious. Would they start Onyeka, KP, and Jalen? That's a kind of a wonky 3-3. Jalen's not really a 3.
Mm-hmm.
But Porzingis' shooting kind of makes that a little bit more viable if you want to do that, And I would think to be like the first 4 minutes you run that group, and then you get into your staggering your rotation and things like that. But I won't be surprised at all to see Ricochet starting at the 3. I'm not totally closed-minded to Nickeil Alexander-Walker starting. I mean, that might happen too.
Absolutely.
But Ricochet grew a lot last year, shot the ball so well the last 2 months of the season, and we'll see if he's coming back stronger, kind of a little bit more muscle on his body. I mean, Summer League Kobe his body was totally transformed.
Yeah.
It was so much bigger and stronger. But my guess is Ricochet, Jalen, and Onyeka, and you're bringing in Alexander Walker and Kennard and KP off the bench, with, whoever the other guys are in the mixer, Timo Gay and stuff. And Porzingis he's another guy, like he's a pro. Like if you ask him to come off the bench, he's not going to throw a fit.
Yeah.
He's gonna say, okay, I'm going to help the second unit. I'm going to help the second unit. And and he will close games. I mean, he in some games where you need Trey to have that pick and pop big on the floor. I know it's fun to see Onyeka's growth as a shooter, but he's not anything close to the volume shooter that Porzingis is a true volume producing, 5. And so for me, it's going to be a little bit game by game, matchup by matchup. If we're playing from behind, it's going to be heavy dose of Porzingis in the fourth quarter. Try to use more 3-point shooting on the floor to catch up. So I don't know. People who are getting stressed out about who's going to start, I think I think that's a little silly.
Yeah.
To start with, none of us
3 in the morning, people going back and forth over who's starting. Like, y'all go to bed, man. It's gonna be all right.
I mean, and I think the funniest part is they're not going to ask any of us what they should do. So what we think doesn't matter at all. It doesn't have any bearing on the decision at all. But for me, it's like I in my day job, I run a consulting firm, right? And one of the mottos we use is create the problem.
Okay.
Right. So if I go sell some work and I've got to kind of create the resourcing to come deliver on that work. Right. But the Hawks is like they have all this depth now. So they've created the problem, and now the way to solve for that is tell these guys like, hey, it's going to be game to game, matchup by matchup. It's going to depend upon whether we're up, whether we're down, whether we're trying to close a defensive unit, whether we're trying to catch up with the offensive unit. I mean, that's just how the NBA season works. But I mean, to have easily twice as much depth as they had on the roster last year is a good problem to create. And, you trust the guys to support each other and support whoever's on the floor and be an adult and be a professional. I think that's what we'll see.
Do you see any lineups with Double O and Porzingis playing together? Do you think that's a possibility, or how do you see those two meshing?
Yeah. So it's interesting to me because where I could see that working, right, is you want to get your big up the floor to the level of the screen. You don't want Porzingis doing that, right? That's not what Porzingis really can do anymore. You park Porzingis on whoever's in the weak side corner and get that weak side rim protection on defense and let Onyeka work up the floor, supporting guards, supporting the screen level stuff and those sorts of things. And so defensively, I can see that working just fine. And offensively, if Porzingis wasn't a high level shooter, it would feel like untenable.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much we'll see it, but I won't be surprised if they even close with those. I mean, you get the rebound. I mean, Porzingis gives you a lot more rebounding, and we know Onyeka's got better rebounding the ball last year, but he still needs help. Rebounding the basketball sometimes, and Porzingis gives you a lot of that. So I won't be surprised to see them play at times together. And I think their combined offensive skill set gives Trey more to work with. Yeka dive into the rim, for the lob. That's not really something what Porzingis wants to do. Porzingis popping 5 whole feet behind the 3-point line, knocking those shots down. It's just I think Trey's gonna have a lot more space to attack this year. And I think that's going to be helpful. So I think there will be, games where those two guys are on the floor together when it makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there will be Quinn just has so many more options now. And it's almost like an all-star game. Like you can play Patrick Ewing and Shaq together. Like you can do a different types of combinations, I think. And I was kind of just wondering about that. That's why I asked you. I'm not really a fan of Jalen Johnson at the 3, but I was curious as if they wanted to do a double O and Porzingis thing together. And I think that'll kind of be more on a situational type thing. But I'm all for it, man. I'm all for it. Our guy Brad did a deep dive with Alexander Walker the other day, a wonderful pod. And he's actually probably one of my favorite acquisitions coming over that the Hawks brought in. My son is a huge Anthony Edwards fan, and so he was just elated that Alexander Walker is going to be here in Atlanta. And I'm just curious, how do you see him coming in, and where do you see him fitting in with this roster?
Yeah, I don't know if people know this, but before my wife and I moved out here to Seattle, I spent 14 years in Minnesota.
Oh, okay.
And so I have a lot of friends around the Timberwolves organization. And the people, like the media and people around that team, do nothing but sing his praises. Just an absolute professional team guy, works hard. And I think that for me, when he came in the league, everybody was curious, what would he grow to become offensively? Because at the college level, didn't really shoot the ball, high level. But he's now 38% 3-point shooter, at that level on catch and shoot, especially. But I think the main thing for me is when Dyson goes out. Last year when Dyson went off the floor, the Hawks really had nothing at the point of attack. I mean, they would throw Terrence Mann there, and when 5 years ago Terrence Mann was a legitimate point of attack defender. He's older now, right? And he wasn't bad. And Ricochet kind of depended upon how big the guy was, see if Ricochet could deal with that, or not. But now when Dyson goes to the bench, they got somebody who can replicate what Dyson does to 85th percentile or something along those lines. You're not taking this massive step back. And then to close games, so the thing that I love is you're up by 2 or 3 points. The other team has the ball, 6-7 seconds left. You can throw Dyson out there. You can throw Nickeil Alexander-Walker out there with Jalen, and whoever. If you want Mo Gay, you're going to a real switch lineup with Inyang. I mean, Quinn can throw a serious defensive lineup on those last possessions. That last year was Trey's in the game trying to deal with that possession, and Trey works hard on defense and makes the most of what he has, but he's just not the biggest, strongest guy. And so for me, it's I love Dyson goes to the bench. You still got somebody out there dealing with the other team's point guard or whoever it might be. But I think people will be surprised at how much his offense. If Hawks fans understandably haven't been watching a lot of Timberwolves, how much his offensive game has grown to. It's just he makes responsible choices. He knows what he's doing. He knows what to do with the basketball. And so for me, I think that's what's really grown his marketability, is that he's not just a defensive guy like he was perceived to be 3 years ago. He can shoot the ball, he can handle the ball, he can run a second side pick and roll, he can attack a closeout. Then those are things 3 years ago he wasn't really doing with consistency. He has all of that now, even if he's always going to be slotted in as a secondary creator on whatever lineup he's on.
Yeah, I see all that, man. I'm really excited about the versatility that he brings to this squad. And like I said, a lot of talk has been about the non-Trey minutes. Nobody talked about the non-Dyson minutes, because listen, that defense without him out there, man, it was sometimes you're just holding your breath. And no disrespect to our old friend Terrence Mann, but this isn't 2019 anymore, man. So just being able to bring in a guy with that much defensive acumen is just, kudos, man. Kudos. I want to ask you kind of a general question. When you look at let's just say the last 3 NBA champions, OKC, Boston, Denver, what trend do you see maybe that these 3 teams or these 3 organizations were able to accomplish successfully? Is it just hitting on your draft picks? Is it just, the free agency? what trends do you see that makes teams successful to get to that level where the Hawks are trying to get to?
Yeah, I mean, so for me, it's as much about the human beings you have on your roster as it is. I mean, talent matters. Talent obviously matters. I don't want to sit here and say talent doesn't matter. Talent definitely matters.
Yeah.
But when you look at Boston, you see a guy like Derek White who just grinds every possession, every single game, right? Al Horford, that same mentality, just grind and grind and grind and be that glue guy. You see the selflessness, across those teams. And there really is so much about embracing the mentality of I'm going to put the team first. I think that's a big thing that the Hawks are prioritizing. Oklahoma City, not my favorite team to watch. They foul. The joke is they're like the Legion of Doom Seahawks, where they're like, we're not going to call a penalty on every play, and they just foul. Like, so you're not going to call a foul on every possession. So league's got to figure out how to deal with that. And Shea finally stopped pushing off, after game 2 of the finals. Like, it seems like the rest were like, okay, we're gonna start calling this, kind of thing. But obviously, Sam Presti, took a good 4 years to kind of build that up, and it takes time, especially with him, with a young group of guys and things like that. But in Oklahoma City, there's a coach who is innovative and leans into more modern concepts, not running the state stuff that Nate McMillan was running for the Hawks before when he was in role, and it was all old school. And I'll still say Nate,
old buddy Nate, man. Shout out to Nate.
I still think he deserves a ton of credit for that Eastern Conference run, because the one thing he did when he took over was he simplified the defense, and the defense went way up. So I just think it wasn't the right long-term fit. But for me, it's, you look at Derek White, you look at Al Horford, you look at the other guy, you look at Peyton Pritchard, guys that just do the things that they're asked to do and don't try to do more. Don't like throw a fit when their role's not big enough. You just buy in. And then in Denver, I'll go back to, I know that he's had a tough injury career, but the one to me, like everyone, of course, Jokic was the central kind of figure in that run. But if you watch Denver make that run to that championship, Jamal Murray committing himself to playing defense really hard on defense was what really put them over the top. Like and he paid for it with his body. He hasn't been healthy since then, and that's unfortunate. He's one of my favorite guys in the league to watch, and now that he's on this massive contract and trying to get his knee right and all that sort of stuff. But he sacrificed probably 2 or 3 years off of his career by taking on all of the physical stuff that he had to take on. They didn't have a guard who could do that, really. When KCP was off the floor, and things like that. So for me, it's like being willing to do the grunt work, being able to do the dirty work, being able to do the little things, buying in, embracing your role, not trying to, kind of do things that are beyond your skill, the capability. And then, obviously, Mark Dano is, innovative coach in Oklahoma City, will really mix things up. But for me, it's probably 50% talent and 50% guys who bring the right attitude and mentality to the team every single day. And that's what I think. And even you saw that with the Pacers, who made a bit of an unexpected run to the finals, right? It was buying in. And so it's that talent plus buy-in, I think is the kind of the formula that can get a team there.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I know when you think championships, you always think of the stars, but like, even if you go back further, when you think about those years with Jordan, there's without Paxson hitting those open shots, without Rodman doing the dirty work. Like, I mean, there's always like those guys who don't get like the unsung heroes, the Robert Ory's, like championships are won because of these guys. Yes, you have your stars, but being able to fill a role, be comfortable with that role, and even like superseding your role. Those guys were playing above and beyond, like Peyton Pritchard, those guys were just like solid in the playoffs, and I think that the Hawks are headed in that direction. I don't think they're there yet, but I think they're headed in that direction. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, if you're a Hawks fan, I think you have a lot to be excited about. Hawks fans are going to be excited anyway. But I mean, I think this year you really have like seriously a lot to be excited about, so it's a good time to be in Atlanta.
Yeah. And Pritchard's one more thing on him is there's probably 10 teams in the league he could go be a starting point guard on. And he's not asking out. He's not asking, he's that backup point guard, and that's what he does. And that's one of the reasons that Boston is where they are, is the guys, don't put themselves ahead of the team. And that's the mentality that has to be there. And he'll probably will be a starting point guard at some point, somewhere, because he's that good to me.
Yeah.
But right now he just wants to help his team win. And that's just, it's easy to admire and root for guys who bring that mentality to their work.
Yeah, same with those guys in Indiana. I
Yep.
mean, that guard room is if they don't do nothing, man, they're gonna play hard. Like they're gonna play hard. They're not gonna give up. 14, fourth quarter they down 14. They're gonna come out there and they're gonna have a punch. It just unfortunately they without Halliburton they kind of ran out of gas. But like those guys play so hard. You know what I'm saying? So. They have that identity, and I think that is what the Hawks are trying to develop, and I think they're on the way to doing that. I'm not going to ask you for a win total. I'm not going to ask you where the Hawks are going to finish, but I do want to ask you kind of what are your kind of expectations for this team, just kind of far out in July, just kind of like what do you expect to kind of see from this team this year?
Yeah, I mean, the East just feels so wide open. I know everyone's saying that, right? Like Tatum
but it's
injury,
the truth.
right? Milwaukee has not put a good roster on Giannis, right? How many games are the Sixers going to get from Embiid and George? And doesn't matter, with the rest of that roster, right? That they have there, and you just kind of keep going around. Like Toronto, I don't know what the heck Toronto's doing with their roster. They still don't have anybody who dribble the basketball very well. Miami adding Powell was a good move for them. I think, but I still think they're more middle of the pack. And so it just feels wide open to me. I mean, you always have to put the little asterisk, like it does depend on health and injury avoidance, across the season. But for me, it's like I won't be surprised if this team, gets 50 wins, 50, 51, 52 wins in that range, if they can keep the team healthy across the season. It's just because they have so much more depth now, and the East is kind of wide open, I think. But the other part is that, what's happened apart from the very top teams in the East, you get past about the fourth seed, whatever point in the season, and everyone 5 through 15 is getting decimated when they go west. And so I think part of getting to 50 is winning more games against Western Conference opponents. That's a decent portion of your season. That's 30 games of your 82, right there. And if you go 10 and 20 in those, like the lower half of the East tends to do, it's hard to get to 50. So for me, I think they've got to kind of win their divisional matchups, and be the best team there. I think they have to be a consistent team. And I think they're a more veteran team this year. I mean, they're playing a lot of young guys in roles, like watching Don Barlow try to be the backup center for 3 straight weeks. And I'm a big fan of his, but he wasn't ready for that.
He was put in a bad situation, and he took a lot of heat for that, man. Poor guy. Shout out to Don.
But he went out there and tried his hardest, and did what he could do. So for me, a big thing is, can they go, I don't know, 17 and 13 against the West, 16 and 14? To me, that's going to really impact, can they get to 50 or not? And typically they have two long, we'll see when the schedule comes out, but typically they have two kind of long West Coast road trips. And those are a grind. Those are exhausting, road trips, but managing through that better. So for me, it's like winning, I don't know, 65% of your games against the Eastern Conference, which is pretty watered down right now. But those 30 games against the West, I have a lot to do with where their win total will land, to me.
Yeah, I agree. There's also an element of just because you have names doesn't mean they're going to mesh immediately. So there's going to be a time where you're going to kind of have to kind of a learning period. They're going to learn, how do I play with Trey? I think ultimately in the long term it's going to work out because Trey is such a masterful table setter. So I think he makes that learning curve kind of a little bit quicker for those guys. They're gonna be like, oh my God, I'm wide the hell open. You know what I mean? So but there still will be a learning curve. There will be a learning curve. There will be a meshing that has to take place. And so I agree with you. You gotta, make a mark out west, handle your business and stay healthy. And that's always kind of a knock on wood type of thing. But I'm looking forward to an exciting year, man, of covering Atlanta Hawks basketball, man. So
likewise.
My friend, thank you so much for coming on with me. Let everybody know about the ATL and 29 podcast and your Twitter and everything. And I'm sure all the Hawks fans already tapped in, but pleasantries.
Yeah, so at Willis_Glen on Twitter. I always forget what my handle is on Blue Sky. It's not that. So just go search for Glen Willis, you'll find me. And I have a Patreon, $3 a month. I do some writing and some video breakdown and stuff like that. I'm going to start putting out this week some kind of player by player video analysis from last season. So that's coming right around the corner. And Brad and I are continuing on the player capsules over on Locked On Hawks. We knocked out a few of those this past weekend that'll be posting soon. And then, like we said earlier, there's a ton of content creators out there, and for me, instead of promoting myself, I'm like, go support the community. Just go find all those people. Support great work you do here. And I mentioned I've got a lot of guys who are the Atlanta Forever guys out there working hard, putting content out, and So my ask is, let's just build a community where we support each other, encourage one each other, love on one another, and shout each other out. Support. That's what I'll see is just kind of us to lift each other up, because everybody's working hard and everybody's trying to put out the best content they can. So for me, I just want to kind of share what space I have with others who are trying to kind of grind their way into bigger following. So I'm all about the community. That's my mindset. So that's my encouragement.
Absolutely, man. Well, I appreciate you, man. I enjoyed the convo, and we definitely got to do it again, man. I typically don't have a lot of guests because I kind of run a one-man operation.
Yeah.
I'm the production host. I'm the I do it all, and so I teach during the day, and I do some coaching and stuff, and so sometimes I just have the space for the audio. I get it in, I get it out. I have one employee, and that is my son. And he does a lot of my technical stuff during the season while I'm at the game. I come home, he's got it ready for me.
That's
I
great.
record and I shoot him a little bit, to keep in his pocket. So we're kind of a two-man operation. But I thank you for coming on, and we'll definitely have to chat again sometime, my friend.
Appreciate you having me.
No problem.